The moment of final decision came as the human fleet reached the galactic center. Admiral Torres stood before the main display aboard the UES Retribution, studying the route that would take his people to the galaxy's far edge. Around him, his senior staff waited for the order that would shape humanity's future in this corner of the universe. "Sir," reported Captain Ben Parker, "we're receiving surrender offers from 47 different governments. The Velkari Empire is offering to become a human protectorate. The Scrix Queen wants to merge her swarm with our fleet. Even the ancient Vorthek are offering their harmonic technologies." Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the tactical situation on her displays. "Sir, we could effectively control this entire galaxy with minimal resistance. Most alien fleets have withdrawn to defensive positions around their homeworlds. They're not even trying to stop us anymore." Dr. Amy Chen's analysis painted a clear picture of galactic submission. "Admiral, the psychological profiles show complete demoralization among alien leadership. They're prepared to accept any terms we offer rather than face continued uncertainty." Torres absorbed the reports in silence. Around him, the bridge crew of the Retribution waited for his decision. 700,000 human ships held formation, ready to follow whatever orders he gave. He could become Emperor of the galaxy with a single command. Instead, he walked to the communication console and opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. Maintain current course toward the galactic rim. We will not be accepting any offers of submission or tribute. Our mission remains unchanged. Find uninhabited space where we can rebuild our civilization." The response from his fleet commanders was immediate acknowledgement. 700,000 ships continued their steady advance, passing through the heart of galactic civilization without claiming a single world. Captain Lisa Blake transmitted humanity's final message to the galaxy's governments and peoples. Her words were broadcast on every communication frequency, reaching billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "People of the galaxy, this is Captain Blake of the Human Expeditionary Force. We came seeking only passage, not conquest. We leave. You as we found you, free to govern yourselves and determine your own destinies. But remember this day, and remember that mercy, like strength, is a choice." The message continued across space, carrying with it a concept that challenged every assumption about power and warfare in galactic history. Strength without conquest, power without domination, victory without subjugation. Emperor Zalthor of the Velkari Empire received the message in his palace throne room. Around him, his advisors struggled to understand what they were hearing. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no military force had ever possessed such power and chosen not to use it. "Your Majesty," said Chancellor Meldara, "they're actually leaving. The humans are passing through our territory without taking anything." The Emperor felt a mixture of relief and confusion. His empire was safe, but his understanding of warfare had been forever changed. These humans had demonstrated something unprecedented, restraint backed by overwhelming force. On the Scrix homeworld, Queen Skryella analyzed the human decision with her bio-advisors. The swarm intelligence that governed her species struggled to comprehend beings who would pass up an opportunity for territorial expansion. "They are not like us," she clicked to her advisors. "They seek something beyond conquest." The Lumion Collective processed the human message through their energy networks, trying to understand the motivation behind such unprecedented restraint. Their collective consciousness reached a conclusion that disturbed their fundamental beliefs about power dynamics. These Beings have transcended traditional concepts of strength. They broadcast to their member worlds. They have achieved something we thought impossible: power without the need to dominate. The ancient Vorthek sang complex harmonies of wonder and respect. Their crystalline forms resonated with frequencies that expressed concepts beyond normal. Language. In their harmonic mathematics, they found patterns that suggested humanity had solved a fundamental equation of civilization. As the human fleet passed through the galactic center, alien observers documented every detail of their passage. The formation remained perfect. No ships broke off to establish bases. No landing parties descended to claim territory. No demands were made for tribute or resources. Captain Greg Williams reported from the UES Thunderstrike that alien civilian populations were emerging from their shelters to watch the human fleet pass overhead. Children pointed at the sky in wonder. Adults stood in silent amazement as 700,000 ships moved through their space like migrating stars. "Sir," Williams reported to Admiral Torres, "the aliens are actually coming out to watch us pass. Some are transmitting messages of thanks for sparing their worlds." Colonel Nina Rodriguez had released Admiral Hex Nara and returned control of the Velkari flagship to its crew. As she prepared to return to her own ship, the alien officer made an unexpected request. "Colonel," Hex Nara said quietly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course, Admiral." "Why? You could rule this galaxy. Why choose exile instead?" Rodriguez considered the question carefully before answering. "Because ruling through fear isn't really ruling at all. It's just delayed rebellion. We learned that from the war we fought." "What kind of war teaches such lessons?" "A war where survival required becoming something better than our enemies," Rodriguez replied. "We could have become like the Krill, conquering through brutality. Instead, we chose to become something else." Lieutenant Sarah Davis reported from the scout ship UES Pathfinder that alien governments were beginning to resume normal operations. Trade routes slowly reopened as merchant ships emerged from hiding. Communication networks reactivated as the panic subsided. "Sir," she reported to Captain Robinson, "it's like the galaxy is coming back to life in our wake." Dr. Chen completed her final analysis of the psychological impact on alien civilizations. What she found would reshape galactic culture for generations to come. "Admiral," she reported to Torres, "the aliens are not just relieved, they're inspired. We've shown them a form of power they never imagined possible. This will change how they think about strength, warfare, and civilization itself." Commander Chris Taylor monitored alien communications as the human fleet approached the galaxy's edge. What he heard were conversations about hope, change, and the possibility of a different kind of future. "Sir," Taylor reported, "the aliens are talking about reforming their military doctrines. Some are discussing complete disarmament, others are exploring new forms of interspecies cooperation. Our passage has triggered a philosophical revolution." As the UES Retribution reached the boundary between galactic civilization and empty space, Admiral Torres gathered his senior staff for a final briefing. Behind them, 700,000 human ships prepared to leave the galaxy behind. "We've accomplished something remarkable," Torres told his officers. "We've shown that strength doesn't require domination. That power can be used to protect rather than conquer. That mercy is not weakness, but the highest form of strength." Admiral Sullivan nodded. "The aliens will remember this day for millennia. We've given them a new understanding of what civilization can become." Captain Blake opened a final communication channel to the galaxy they were leaving behind. Her words would be recorded in alien history books and taught to their children for generations. To all beings of galactic civilization, this is our farewell. You have shown us that even in fear, wisdom can prevail. We leave you with this thought. True strength is not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to create. Build well in our absence. The human fleet crossed into unexplored space beyond the galactic rim. Behind them, the lights of alien civilizations grew dim but did not disappear. Ahead lay empty stars and the promise of new worlds where humanity could build a future worthy of the lessons they had learned. Years later, alien historians would record the day that 700,000 human warships arrived at their borders. They would tell their children about the beings who possessed the power to conquer everything, but chose to conquer nothing. The story would become legend, then myth, and finally a fundamental truth about the nature of true civilization. The universe had trembled not because the humans were conquerors, but because they chose not to be. In that choice lay a lesson that would echo through the stars for all time. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle, and the ultimate strength is the power to choose mercy when destruction is equally possible. As the last human ship disappeared into the cosmic dark, the galaxy began to change. Inspired by an example they never thought possible, alien civilizations slowly began to learn new ways of resolving conflicts, new approaches to strength, and new definitions of what it meant to be truly powerful. The humans were gone, but their legacy remained, proof that even in a universe of endless conflict, some beings could choose a better path. The silence began 3 hours after news of the human demonstration reached the galactic communication networks. First, the trade routes went quiet. Merchant vessels that had traveled between systems for centuries suddenly changed course and returned to their home ports. Cargo ships carrying vital supplies simply disappeared from the shipping lanes. The great commercial highways that connected thousands of worlds fell empty for the first time in recorded history. Captain Matt Robinson commanded the human scout ship UES Pathfinder, ranging ahead of the main fleet to monitor alien activity. What his sensors showed was unprecedented, empty space where there should have been busy traffic. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Sarah Davis from her position at the sensor array, "I'm reading 0 civilian traffic in this entire sector. The shipping lanes are completely empty." Robinson studied the display in disbelief. This sector usually handled thousands of ships per day, carrying everything from agricultural products to manufactured goods. The economic implications of shutting down such traffic were staggering. "Any sign of military vessels?" he asked. "Negative, sir. Even the patrol ships have withdrawn." Behind the scouts, Admiral Torres received similar reports from across his advance forces. Lieutenant Rick Johnson, Chief of Space Traffic Control for the human fleet, compiled the data into a comprehensive briefing. "Sir," Johnson reported to Admiral Torres, "galactic commerce has completely stopped. We're detecting no civilian movement anywhere in our sensor range. It's like the entire galaxy has gone into hiding." Torres understood the implications immediately. The aliens were not just avoiding conflict with his fleet. They were shutting down their entire civilization rather than risk attracting human attention. Dr. Amy Chen worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the UES Discovery, analyzing the psychological impact of humanity's presence. What she found disturbed her more than any military threat. "Admiral," she reported over the communication link, "I've been monitoring alien news broadcasts and government communications. They're not just afraid of us. They're terrified of becoming irrelevant." Torres appeared on her screen. "Explain." For thousands of years, these species have been the dominant forces in their regions. They've never encountered anything more advanced than themselves. Our presence proves they're not at the top of the food chain anymore. The psychological analysis revealed something unexpected. The aliens were not primarily afraid of being destroyed. They were afraid of being surpassed. For millennia, they had defined themselves as the peak of galactic civilization. Humanity's arrival shattered that fundamental assumption. On the Velkari homeworld, Emperor Zalthor sat in his palace contemplating the reports from his military advisors. The human fleet continued its steady advance, showing no interest in conquest or plunder. They simply moved through space like a force of nature, unstoppable and incomprehensible. "Your Majesty," said his chief advisor, Chancellor Meldara, "perhaps we should consider a different approach." "What do you mean?" the Emperor asked. "Diplomatic contact. These humans claim to be refugees seeking passage. What if they're telling the truth?" Emperor Zalthor considered this possibility. His intelligence services had analyzed human behavior patterns and found no evidence of expansionist goals. The fleet maintained perfect discipline and avoided all alien installations. They had taken nothing and demanded nothing. "Prepare a diplomatic message," he ordered. "Offer them safe passage through our territory in exchange for non-interference treaties." Similar conversations occurred across the galaxy as alien leaders grappled with a situation beyond their experience. The Scrix Queen consulted with her bioadvisors about human biological patterns. The Lumian Collective analyzed energy signatures from the human ships. The Vortex sang complex harmonies to predict human intentions. All reached the same conclusion. Humanity was not behaving like a conquering force. The ancient Zelnar philosopher Kumind transmitted his thoughts to the Andromeda Council. His crystalline form pulsed with deep blue light as he spoke. "Fellow beings, we may be witnessing something unprecedented. These humans possess the power to take anything they desire, yet they take nothing. This suggests a level of restraint unknown in galactic history." Council leader Vorthok listened to the philosopher's words with growing unease. In 3,000 years of leading the council, he had never faced a situation where raw power was coupled with apparent restraint. "What are you suggesting, Kumind?" Vorthok asked. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves why beings with such overwhelming force choose not to use it. What kind of civilization develops 700,000 warships but uses them only for protection?" The question haunted alien leaders across the galaxy. Intelligence agencies worked frantically to understand human motivations. What they discovered challenged their fundamental assumptions about power and warfare. Captain Williams reported from the UES Thunderstrike that alien communications networks were buzzing with desperate analysis of human behavior. Military academies studied recordings of the boarding action, trying to understand human combat techniques. Civilian populations huddled in underground shelters, waiting for an invasion that never came. "Sir," Williams reported to Admiral Torres, "the aliens are driving themselves into a panic. They're expecting us to act like every other military force in history, but we're not following their playbook." Torres understood the problem. Galactic civilization had developed along predictable lines for thousands of years. Strong species conquered weak ones. Military forces seized territory and resources. Powerful fleets established dominance through shows of force. Humanity was doing none of these things. Admiral Kate Sullivan joined Torres on the bridge of the UES Retribution as they discussed their next move. Behind them, the human fleet maintained its course toward the galaxy's center. neither slowing nor accelerating despite the chaos around them. The aliens are starting to send diplomatic messages, Sullivan reported. Offers of tribute, territorial concessions, trade agreements. They're trying to buy us off. What are they offering? Torres asked. Everything. Star systems, mining rights, technology transfers. Some are even offering complete submission to human authority. Torres felt a weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. With a single command, he could become the ruler of hundreds of worlds. Billions of alien beings would bow to human authority. The resources of entire star systems would be at his disposal. The thought disgusted him. Send the same response to everyone, Torres ordered. We want nothing from them except passage to uninhabited space. Colonel Rodriguez reported from her position aboard the captured Velkari flagship that alien crews were behaving strangely. They seemed confused by human restraint and kept expecting brutal treatment that never came. Admiral Hexanara asked me why we haven't executed her crew, Rodriguez reported. She seems genuinely puzzled that we're treating prisoners according to the Geneva Conventions. Dr. Chen completed her analysis of alien psychology and transmitted her findings to the Fleet Command. What she discovered explained the galaxy-wide panic that was spreading before the human advance. These species have never experienced true total war, she reported. Their conflicts have always been limited by mutual restraint and shared cultural values. They cannot comprehend a military force that has been forged by existential struggle. The reports painted a picture of galactic civilization that had grown comfortable with its own limitations. Wars were fought by professional soldiers according to established rules. Civilian populations were rarely affected. Technology advanced slowly through peaceful research rather than desperate innovation. Humanity represented something completely outside their experience, a civilization that had been forced to evolve or die. Commander Chris Taylor monitored alien intelligence networks and found growing desperation among their leaders. Some were advocating for immediate surrender. Others proposed desperate alliance schemes. A few suggested abandoning their territories entirely rather than face the approaching human fleet. Sir, Taylor reported, the aliens are completely paralyzed by indecision. They can't agree on how to respond to us because they've never faced anything like this before. As the human fleet continued its advance, the silence deepened. Entire star systems powered down their installations, hoping to avoid. Notice, ancient trade routes that had operated for millennia simply stopped functioning. The great wheel of galactic commerce and communication ground to a halt. But most telling was the response of individual beings. Alien civilians watched their news. Broadcasts with growing awe as they realized these humans could have taken everything but chose to take nothing. Children asked their parents why the powerful strangers were being kind. Adults struggled to understand a form of strength they had never imagined. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching tactical displays that showed a galaxy holding its breath. 700,000 human ships moved through space like a river of stars, carrying with them the weight of choices that would define the future of galactic civilization. Behind them lay a trail of confusion and fear. Ahead lay decisions that would determine whether humanity would become the galaxy's rulers or something far more significant. An example of what power could be when wielded with wisdom. The first battle began exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds after the human fleet encountered the Velkari defense line. Admiral Torres had made a careful decision. Rather than send his entire force against the alien positions, he would demonstrate human capabilities with a single ship. The message would be clear. This is what one human warship can do. Captain Greg Williams commanded the UES Thunderstrike, a heavy dreadnought that had served throughout the Krill War. His ship measured 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Williams was a veteran officer with steady nerves and complete confidence in his crew. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Dan Cooper from the sensor station, "Velkari patrol squadron approaching. 12 ships in attack formation." Williams studied the tactical display. The alien ships were impressive by galactic standards. Each Velkari cruiser was 800 meters long with energy shields and plasma cannons. Their formation showed discipline and training. Under normal circumstances, they would be formidable opponents. These were not normal circumstances. "Shields to full power," Williams ordered. "Weapon systems online. Do not fire until they do." The Velkari squadron was led by Admiral Hex Nara, a decorated officer with 20 years of combat experience against pirates and raiders. She had never faced a real military force in actual warfare. Her intelligence briefings described humans as a primitive species with crude technology. "All ships, target the human vessel," she commanded. "Fire when ready." 12 plasma cannons opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant beams of superheated energy lanced across space toward the UES Thunderstrike. The alien crews watched their displays with satisfaction as their weapons struck the human ship. The beams simply disappeared against the Thunderstrike's shields. Captain Williams watched the energy readings on his display. The alien weapons were impressive light shows, but they barely registered on his defensive systems. Humanity had learned to build strong shields during the war against the Krill. "Return fire," Williams ordered calmly. "Disable, don't destroy." The Thunderstrike's response was swift and precise. Quantum pulse weapons struck each alien ship with surgical accuracy. The beams passed through their shields like they were not there. Critical systems shut down instantly. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Life support switched to emergency power. In 4 minutes and 37 seconds, 12 Velkari warships were floating helplessly in space. Admiral Hexanara stared at her darkened bridge in shock. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across her control stations. Her weapons officer tried desperately to restart their systems. Her engineer reported total power failure in the main engines. "What happened?" she demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," replied her tactical officer. "Their weapons passed right through our shields. All our major systems are down, but the ship is intact." Before Admiral Hexanara could respond, her communication system crackled to life. A human voice spoke in perfect Velkari. "Admiral Hexanara, this is Captain Williams of the UES Thunderstrike. Prepare to be boarded." The boarding pods launched. From the Thunderstrike, while the battle was still being analyzed by alien observers, Colonel Nina Rodriguez led the assault team that attached to the Velkari flagship. The cutting tools sliced through the alien hull like paper. Nina was a small woman with dark hair and quick reflexes. She had served in the human Marine Corps since the beginning of the Krill War. She understood urban combat, ship-to-ship fighting, and zero-gravity operations. Most importantly, she knew how to move fast and hit hard. The Velkari crew tried to resist the boarding action. They formed defensive positions in the corridors and prepared to fight with personal weapons. They had trained for this scenario in simulations. Real combat was nothing like their simulations. Nina's team moved through the ship like ghosts. Their armor absorbed the alien energy weapons while their own guns fired precisely targeted shots. Velkari defenders found themselves stunned and disarmed before they could react. The human Marines used tactics the aliens had never seen. Coordinated movement, suppressing fire, and room-clearing techniques perfected in actual warfare. Bridge secured, Nina reported over her communication link. No casualties on either side. Admiral Hexnara found herself looking down the barrel of a human weapon. The Marine holding it was calm and professional. There was no anger in her eyes, no bloodlust, just complete competence. "Admiral," Nina said politely, "please order your crew to stand down. We have control of your ship." Hexnara had no choice. She gave the order to surrender. Her crew laid down their weapons and submitted to human authority. The entire boarding action had taken less than 10 minutes. Throughout the galaxy, observers watched recordings of the battle with growing horror. The human ship had effortlessly defeated an entire Velkari squadron without taking any damage. Their weapons passed through alien shields like they were not there. Their boarding teams moved with inhuman precision and efficiency. Emperor Zalthor of the Velkari Empire called an emergency meeting of his war council. The holographic displays showed tactical analysis of the brief battle. His military advisors studied the data with growing concern. "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded. "Our intelligence reports said humans were primitive." General Velquan, the Empire's chief military strategist, reviewed the weapon signatures. "Sir, their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. These are not the same humans we've been monitoring." "What do you mean?" Zalthor asked. "Their shields operate on principles we don't understand. Their weapons use quantum manipulation technology that we've only theorized about. They're boarding. Teams fight like they've been in constant warfare for years." The Emperor felt cold fear creeping through his body. "How many ships like that do they have?" 700,000, sir." Similar conversations took place across the galaxy as alien leaders realized the true scope of the threat they faced. The Scrix Queen reviewed biological analysis of human combat performance. The Lumian Collective studied energy readings from the battle. The Vorthek sang mournful harmonies about the changing nature of warfare. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Torres received reports from Captain Williams and Colonel Rodriguez. The demonstration had achieved its purpose. The aliens now understood they were dealing with a real military force. "Any response from the alien fleets?" Torres asked Commander Taylor. "They're pulling back, sir. All alien forces are withdrawing to defensive positions around their major worlds." Dr. Chen analyzed intercepted communications and found growing panic among alien military leaders. They were realizing that their combined forces could not stop the human fleet. Some were already discussing surrender terms. "Admiral," she reported, "the aliens are beginning to understand the reality of their situation. Their military doctrine is based on limited warfare between roughly equal forces. They've never faced an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority." Torres nodded. Humanity had learned about technological superiority from the wrong end. The Krill had possessed better weapons and ships when the war began. Humans had survived by adapting, faster than their enemies expected. Captain Lisa Blake opened a communication channel to the alien fleets. Her voice carried across space to every ship in the alien formation. "This is Captain Blake of the Human Expeditionary Force. You have seen what one human ship can accomplish. We have 700,000 such ships. We do not wish to fight you, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Stand aside and let us pass." The response came from Council Leader Vorthak himself. His ancient voice carried weariness and fear. "Captain Blake, what are your true intentions? Where are you going?" "Beyond your territories," Blake replied honestly. "To empty space where we can build new homes without disturbing anyone. And if we refuse passage, Blake paused before answering. When she spoke, her words were calm but carried absolute conviction. Then you will learn why humanity survived a war that destroyed our entire civilization. We are not the same species you remember from your databases. The communication ended, leaving the alien fleets to consider their options. Behind them, 700,000 human warships continued their steady advance. The demonstration was over, but the lesson was clear. Admiral Hexanara sat in her damaged ship, watching human marines guard her bridge. The young woman who had captured her ship stood nearby, monitoring communications. There was something in the human's eyes that Hexanara had never seen before. The look of someone who had fought for survival and won. "What was this war you fought?" Hexanara asked quietly. Colonel Rodriguez looked at her with sympathy. "A war for the right to exist. Your people have been lucky enough to live in peace. We haven't had that luxury. Will you destroy us?" "Only if you force us to," Rodriguez replied. "We're not conquerors. We're survivors." As the human fleet continued its advance, the aliens faced a choice they had never imagined: fight an enemy they could not defeat, or allow passage to beings they did not understand. The universe held its breath as 700,000 human warships moved inexorably toward the galaxy's heart. The alien reconnaissance ships arrived at the galaxy's edge 12 hours after the first contact. What they found made their pilots question their own sanity. Captain Veltar of the Velkari scout ship Windseeker had served in the Imperial Navy for 40 years. He had seen battle fleets and trade convoys. He had witnessed the great military parades on the capital worlds. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for what stretched before his ship. The human fleet extended beyond the range of his sensors. Massive dreadnoughts moved in perfect formation, each one larger than the biggest Velkari battleship. Carrier vessels bristled with fighter craft. Support ships formed protective screens around larger vessels. The formation was so precise it looked like a single living organism. "Count them," Captain Veltar ordered his sensor officer. "Sir, I've counted over 300,000 ships in our sensor range," Lieutenant Nex Vara replied, "and we're only seeing a small portion of their formation." Captain Veltar transmitted his findings back to the Council. Within hours, similar reports came from Scrix Bioscouts, Lumion energy probes, and Vorthek crystal ships. The numbers were consistent and terrifying. 700,000 human warships, moving in perfect coordination toward galactic space. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, General Ryan Torres reviewed the tactical displays with his senior staff. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood beside him, her blonde hair pulled back in military regulations style. Captain Ben Parker monitored communications from his station near the command center. "The aliens are watching us," Admiral Sullivan reported. "At least 30 scout ships have approached our perimeter." "Let them look," Torres replied. "We have nothing to hide." Captain Parker looked up from his console. "Sir, we're receiving multiple communication attempts from various alien governments. They're demanding we halt our advance." Torres walked to the main display, where a three-dimensional map showed their route through galactic space. Red markers indicated alien military bases and patrol routes. Yellow markers showed major population centers. Their planned course avoided all of them. "Send the same response to everyone," Torres ordered. "We seek peaceful passage to uninhabited space beyond their territories. We will not halt our advance, but we will avoid their worlds and installations." Dr. Amy Chen, humanity's chief xenobiologist, worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research vessel UES Discovery. She analyzed intercepted alien communications, trying to understand how their enemies thought and fought. What she found surprised her. The aliens had grown soft during centuries of peace. Their weapons were designed for ceremony rather than combat. Their battle tactics had not evolved in generations. Most shocking of all, many alien species had never experienced true warfare. "Admiral Torres," she said over the communication link, "I've completed my analysis of alien military capabilities." Torres appeared on her screen, looking tired but alert. "What did you find, Doctor?" "They're not prepared for real war, sir. Their combined fleets number less than 200,000 ships, and most of those are patrol craft or ceremonial vessels. Their weapons technology is at least 50 years behind ours." Torres nodded grimly. Humanity had learned about war the hard way. The Krill hegemony had forced them to develop new weapons, new tactics, and new ways of thinking about combat. These aliens had never faced such pressure. "Are they a threat to us?" Torres asked. "Not militarily," Dr. Chen replied. "But they could cause problems if they try to organize a coalition against us. Fear makes people do stupid things." Across the galaxy, emergency sessions convened in capital cities and space stations. The Velkari Emperor Zhao Kai Liao Chanzheng Wei Yuan Hui. The Scrix Queen gathered her swarm commanders. The Lumian Collective activated their defense networks. The Vorthek sang urgent harmonies to coordinate their response. Emperor Zalthor of the Velkari Empire was the first to speak at the Emergency Galactic Summit. His holographic image appeared in council chambers across hundreds of worlds. "These humans represent an existential threat to galactic civilization," he declared. "We must unite our forces and stop them before they can establish a foothold in our space." Queen Skryla of the Scrix Swarm clicked her agreement. "My bioships are already moving to intercept them. The swarm will not tolerate invasion." The Lumian Collective spoke as one voice through their representative. "Our energy weapons are charging. We stand ready to defend galactic peace." Only the ancient Vorthek expressed caution. Their harmonic voice carried across the communication network. "Perhaps we should attempt to understand their intentions before resorting to violence." "Their intentions are clear," Emperor Zalthor replied. 700,000 warships is not a refugee convoy. It's an invasion force. As the aliens organized their defense, human intelligence officers monitored their communications. Commander Chris Taylor aboard the stealth ship UES Shadow analyzed alien military deployments and strategic planning. "They're massing their fleets at choke points along our projected route," he reported to Admiral Torres. "The Velkari are mobilizing their entire battle fleet. The Scrix are calling in bioships from across their territory. The Lumians are powering up their energy cannons." Torres studied the tactical display. Red markers showed alien fleet positions. Their strategy was predictable but potentially effective. By concentrating their forces at key locations, they could force the human fleet into major battles. "How long until we reach the first checkpoint?" Torres asked. 18 hours, sir," replied Captain Parker. Torres made his decision. "Send a message to all ship commanders. We will not be deterred from our course. If the aliens want to fight, we'll show them what real war looks like." The message spread through the human fleet instantly. 700,000 ship captains received their orders simultaneously. Weapons systems came online. Shield generators powered up. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. Medical bays cleared space for casualties. But most importantly, the human fleet maintained its perfect formation and continued its steady advance. On the alien worlds, civilian populations watched the news broadcasts with growing fear. Children asked their parents why the sky seemed darker. Adults spoke in whispers about the approaching storm. Some planets began evacuation procedures, moving their populations to underground shelters. The galactic stock markets crashed as traders realized the economic implications of war. Trade routes shut down as merchants refused to risk their ships. Space tourism disappeared overnight as travelers canceled their plans. In the deep space monitoring stations, alien technicians watched, their sensors with growing dread. The human fleet showed no signs of slowing down or changing course. Long-range scans revealed weapons unlike anything in galactic databases. Energy readings suggested power sources that defied understanding. Dr. Chen completed her analysis of human military doctrine and transmitted her findings to the fleet commanders. Humanity had developed tactics that no alien civilization had ever seen. Adaptive strategies that could change in real time. Weapon systems that learned from each battle. Command structures that could function even if cut off from central authority. Most importantly, humans had something the aliens lacked: experience with total war. The Krill hegemony had taught humanity that survival sometimes required terrible choices. The aliens still believed in honorable combat and civilized warfare. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the tactical display as alien fleets moved into position. Behind him, the greatest military force in human history maintained its course toward an inevitable confrontation. "Sir," Captain Parker reported, "we're receiving one final communication from the Andromeda Council." "Put it through," Torres ordered. The voice of Council Leader Vorthak filled the bridge. "General Torres, this is your last warning. Halt your advance immediately or face the combined might of galactic civilization." Torres walked to the communication console and spoke clearly. "Council Leader, we have no desire for conflict. Stand aside and let us pass." "That is not acceptable," Vorthak replied. "You will surrender your fleet for inspection or be destroyed." Torres closed the communication channel and turned to his staff. Admiral Sullivan checked her weapons readiness reports. Captain Parker confirmed all ships were ready for combat. Commander Taylor provided final intelligence updates on alien positions. "All ships," Torres announced on the fleet-wide channel. "This is General Torres. In 18 hours, we will reach the alien defense line. They have chosen to fight rather than allow peaceful passage. Show them why humanity survived the Krill War." 700,000 human ships acknowledged the order simultaneously. The greatest fleet in human history prepared for battle as it continued its inexorable advance toward the waiting alien forces. The great hall of the Andromeda Council stretched beyond sight, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Admiral Zexathara of the Velkari Empire stood at the center podium, her blue skin shimmering under the artificial lights. She spoke in the common galactic tongue about routine border patrols and trade disputes. The monthly assembly had become boring over the centuries of peace. Council Leader Vorthak of the ancient Zelnar species sat in his floating chair, half asleep. His crystalline body caught the light as he shifted position. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds listened with little interest. The insectoid scrix clicked their mandibles in quiet conversation. The energy-based Lumians pulsed with soft colors. The crystalline Vorthak sang their harmonic thoughts to each other. Nobody paid attention when the alert chimed softly on the sensor displays. Lieutenant Kexara, a young Velkari officer, stared at her screen in confusion. The readings made no sense. She tapped the display twice, thinking it was broken. The numbers stayed the same. Her supervisor, Commander Velnok, walked over to check what was wrong. "What is it, Lieutenant?" he asked, looking at the swirling data on the screen. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive formation approaching from the outer rim," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "But the numbers can't be right." Commander Velnok studied the readings. His eyes widened as he processed what he was seeing. "How many ships?" "The computer says 700,000, sir. But that's impossible." Commander Velnok felt his blood turn cold. No fleet in galactic history had ever reached even 100,000 ships. The largest battle fleet belonged to the Velkari Empire, and it had only 50,000 vessels. He looked at the screen again, hoping the sensors were wrong. They were not wrong. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiance. He was a tall man with dark hair and tired eyes. 3 years of travel through empty space had worn down his crew, but they remained disciplined. Behind him, his navigation officer plotted their course toward the alien territories. "Sir, we're approaching the outer sensor grid," reported Lieutenant Tim Carter from his position at the communications station. Jake nodded. "Any response to our approach?" "Nothing yet, sir. They probably think we're asteroids or space debris." Jake almost smiled at that. If only they knew what was really coming. Behind the HMS Defiance, spread across thousands of cubic light-years, the entire human expeditionary force moved in perfect formation. 700,000 warships of every class imaginable, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers packed with fighter squadrons, support ships, medical vessels, supply convoys, and mobile shipyards. It was not just a fleet, it was humanity's entire military might, evacuated from Earth and the colonies before the Krill hegemony could destroy everything. 3 years ago, humanity had fought the most brutal war in their history. They had lost their home worlds, but they had saved their people in their ships. "Open a channel to Admiral Torres," Jake ordered. The face of General Ryan Torres appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and scars on his face from the war against the Krill. Behind him, the bridge of the UES Retribution buzzed with activity. "Jake, what's our status?" Torres asked. "We're entering alien space, sir." No response. "To our presence yet. Keep monitoring. We're not here to fight, but we need to be ready." Jake understood. Humanity had learned hard lessons about being prepared. The Krill had taught them that peace was a luxury they could not afford. Back in the council chambers, the alert grew louder. More officers gathered around the sensor stations. The readings were confirmed by 3 separate monitoring stations. Something massive was approaching from deep space. Admiral Zexathara stopped her speech and walked over to the sensor display. She read the numbers twice before speaking. "Council Leader Vorthak," she called out. "We have an urgent situation." The ancient Zelnar floated over to the display. His crystalline body hummed with energy as he processed the information. "What am I looking at, Admiral?" "A fleet, sir. 700,000 ships approaching from the galactic rim." The Great Hall fell silent. Every representative turned to stare at the sensor displays. The scricks stopped clicking. The Lumians dimmed. Their lights, the Vortex harmonic singing died away. "That's impossible," said Ambassador Clytar of the Scrix swarm. "No species has that many ships." "The sensors don't lie," Admiral Zexathara replied. "They're moving in perfect formation at sublight speed. They'll reach our outer territories in 6 days." Council Leader Vorthak's ancient mind processed the implications. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, nothing like this had ever happened. Wars were small affairs, usually fought over trade routes or minor territorial disputes. The idea of 700,000 warships was beyond comprehension. Could it be the Krill hegemony? Asked General Nexquin of the Lumian Collective. Negative, replied Admiral Zexthera. These ships don't match any known Krill designs. The energy signatures are completely different. Then who are they? Demanded Ambassador Cletar. Before anyone could answer, the communications array crackled to life. A new signal was being broadcast across all frequencies. The voice that emerged was clear and spoke in perfect galactic common. This is Captain Lisa Blake of the Human Expeditionary Force. We are transmitting on all frequencies. To ensure this, message reaches the appropriate authorities. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. Humans were a known species, but they were considered primitive. Their technology was centuries behind galactic standards. They lived in a small cluster of worlds on the galaxy's edge and rarely participated in galactic affairs. Captain Blake's voice continued over the noise. We seek only passage through your space to reach uninhabited systems beyond your borders. We have no hostile intentions toward any galactic civilization. We ask for safe passage and will compensate for any inconvenience our presence may cause. Council Leader Vorthak gestured for silence. When the hall quieted, he spoke into the communications array. This is Council Leader Vorthak of the Andromeda. Council, we demand immediate identification and explanation for this massive military presence in our space. There was a pause before Captain Blake responded. We are refugees, Council Leader. Our home systems were destroyed in a war with an external threat. We seek new worlds beyond your territories where we can rebuild our civilization. 700,000 ships seems excessive for refugees, Vorthak replied coldly. We brought everything we could save, Blake answered simply. Admiral Zexthera leaned close to Vorthak. Sir, this could be an invasion force. We should mobilize our defenses immediately. Vorthak nodded. The ancient Zelnar had lived through many crises, but none like this. 700,000 ships represented more military power than the entire Andromeda Council controlled. If these humans had hostile intentions, the galaxy was in serious trouble. Captain Blake, Vorthak said into the communicator, your fleet will halt its advance immediately and submit to inspection. Any attempt to proceed without authorization will be considered an act of war. The response came quickly. We cannot halt our advance, Council Leader. Our ships require forward momentum to maintain formation integrity. However, we welcome diplomatic contact and are prepared to discuss terms for peaceful passage. Vorthak felt a chill run through his crystalline body. These humans were not asking for permission. They were informing the Council of their intentions. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no one had ever spoken to the Council with such confidence. Around the Great Hall, representatives began urgent communications with their home governments. Emergency sessions were called. Military commanders were awakened from sleep. Defense fleets were put on high alert. But deep down, every being in that chamber knew the truth. If these humans wanted to fight, there was nothing the galaxy could do to stop them.